Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know that you know that, but I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting here in this chair, folks. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, and you are really doing what you're doing, I mean, you're liking, you're subscribing, you're sharing, you're sending me DMs just all over the place, and I will respond to every one of them. I promise. Remember, I respond personally, so it's not assistant or anything. It's the big R back here responding to you guys. Folks, if you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So I'm eternally grateful. And, hey, if you are a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what's coming next. So here we go. Let's pay a couple of bills, and let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Oh man, that's good stuff. I'm drinking out of my IU cup today, which is especially fun since I have a Purdue guy on the other end of the line. But anyway, folks, you know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe, folks. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which you all know is incredibly important to us here at the Power Man. If you are a veteran out there, I want to thank you and your family for your service. That includes my guest today. And folks, I'm glad that you found a home here at the Power Man podcast. We love you. And so does Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out, and tell them the Power of Man sent you. One more sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. There we go. He's laughing, but I mean, honestly, this guy's spry. So just trying to keep up with him is going to be tough today. All right. We have a Marine veteran with us today. He's not a coach. He's a life and business strategist, which we're going to find out all about. And he is also the author of, and I'm holding it right here in my hands, folks. That's right. The Time Wealthy Advantage. Fantastic book. Can't wait to tell you all about it today. Please welcome to the show, Mark Dolfini. Mark, how you doing, brother?
I am grateful to be inside.
That's an
So if you're
Indiana guy
seeing me
right
on a
there.
microphone, you're seeing me inside, and I'm not a weather guy.
That is an
I'm
Indiana
in a
guy.
good spot.
Folks, if you don't know, it's an inside joke. We're both Indiana guys. We're like an hour and a half away from each other right now. And we got buried in snow this past week over Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, just crushed. And it's still really heavy out there. So we're
And
inside and we're
and a
safe. And
balmy like 17. Oh, nope, we're up to 20.
oh, well, that's a high. There we
Yeah,
go.
that's right. Right.
That's right. Honestly, we get no sympathy from my friends in Canada, but my friends down in Texas and Florida right now are just laughing at the two of us, our Mark. So,
Mhm.
Mark, I appreciate you, brother. Welcome to the show, and thank you for sending me all this stuff, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But tell everybody a little bit about who is Mark. What are you about, and what brings you here.
Yeah. I really appreciate the platform, my brother. I feel like we've talked a few times now, and I feel like every time we pick up right where we leave off. So thank you for your authenticity and for the platform that you're helping other people. And that's really what I'm about, is helping other people in whatever tools that I can bring to bear. And that's um sometimes people will reach out to me for business advice, and sometimes they reach out to me for personal advice. And might even say, "Hey, look, I don't know if this is a thing you can even help me with, but can we talk about it?" I'm like, yeah, and it's pretty rare I don't have at least a resource or an idea of what direction to send them in, if not something direct that I've experienced, because done I've done life wrong a lot more than right at times, and made a lot of mistakes. And once I once I realized how once I realized how heavy everything else was compared to carrying around humility, humility is carrying around humility is a lot easier when you're not carrying everything else around. So I've gotten it. Again, those mistakes that I've gotten wrong, especially in business, especially in life, especially in my marriage with my kids, all the different things that, of course, we could all wish we could do again. That's how I best help people. It's just letting them know, hey, man, I've screwed up. Usually, I've screwed up a little bit worse than you, and usually that one-upmanship is usually appreciated. So,
For sure, for sure. When you're coming from a place like that, that's when the good stuff comes out. And I think that's why I enjoyed reading this stuff so much too. There's a lot of you in this book, I'm guessing, from what I'm reading. A lot of this is your personal story. Am I right?
yeah, there's a lot of me. It's I don't know how you write a book of any substance and not leave. a substantial part of yourself in there.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be a good author or good at anything, you have to go at it with your whole heart and not leave anything on the table. And that's what I did with that one. It was in fact every book that I've done, some of the shorter ones were just probably just more thoughts of, probably I mean you referenced the other four books that I sent you, and those were really just I had ideas, I had thoughts, and I was like, man, I got to cut them out of somewhere. So I ended up putting them into their own books because they're good information, but I just didn't have room for that, for that. But it's all stuff that I wrote specifically from me and my experiences and all the mistakes that I've made along the way.
Nice. The I want to kind of show everybody this. This is the stuff that Mark sent me so that I could read it before our interview, which was really awesome. This is the book itself. I mean, it looks like a sizable book, but I'm telling you, it was not a bad read. It did not take me that long. I mean, I was enthralled by it, and it was very easy to digest. This is The Time Wealthy Advantage right here. Okay, and that's the book. And then it also came with these four. So I want everybody to see these. And this is an individual book on lead generation, right? Which is an add-on to the book itself. And this is supplement two, right? Sales.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then we had supplement three, the accounting guide. And then we got supplement four. I really enjoyed this, strategic one sheets.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of very useful stuff in this, which is really cool. I was pleasantly surprised when I opened that up. I was like, one sheets, what is this going to be? I was like, oh, all right, action plan. Cool.
Hmm.
Um, what you're a Marine, okay? I mean, you're learning business, you're doing business. What brings you to putting this stuff out, to doing what it is you're doing, and why is it that you don't call yourself a coach?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna answer the last one first. The whole coaching thing, I think back in 2017, I was in the real estate space and I had written several books at that point in time. One was called The Time Wealthy Investor, and then I wrote another book called The Judge, which was kind of a play on like a Christmas story where, you got the three ghosts of Christmas past. Well, this was like the ghosts of tenants past. So, it was a fun story. I really enjoyed writing it, and really, I've never really used that type of um, fable to pass along messages, but I really had a lot of fun with it. And you saw that, weaved throughout the book in the Time Wealthy Advantage, which I really enjoyed that. Like, and people were like, don't tell me, like there's a couple in the book, and I can't, that's all I can say. But when you get to the end, you're like, I have got to know what happens to this couple. And, but it was really kind of fun. But the reason why, like, I started to step away from the coaching moniker, I actually had an own the brand landlord coach. And I was really helping, and the Time Wealthy Investor was really for people who owned rental properties, very frustrated by running their rental properties and how to do it in a way that doesn't take up all of your time. Thus the moniker Time Wealthy Investor. And it's interesting that when you write a book, in a series of books that's called the Time Wealthy something, it's easy to get labeled as a time management expert. So I was like, no, that's not me. So then people were like, oh, landlord coach. So they started calling me coach, which was fine. But then I started to realize there's a couple of dynamics that was going on in the real estate coaching world in that point in time from 2016 to 2017, 18, 19. As you know, like if you couldn't make $1 in real estate during that period of time, you were, dude, you should just give up. There's no way
Right.
you could literally buy a house, mow the lawn, and then by the next weekend make 10 grand. It was just so hard not to make money. So those folks, keep in mind, I climbed through 2008 and 2009
Yeah.
on the other side of the time wealthy investor. So I had some street cred. Like I had some battle scars. And some of these folks, they had been like, hey, let me tell you how I made my millions last year. They went from 2015 to 2017, and then all of a sudden they decided to get into a coaching program. So there was a lot of that going on, and there was a lot of ick. And I'm just going to leave it there. But there was a lot of ick in that space. So I decided I really wanted to kind of niche up away from the individual landlord and property manager and really start working with other people who were business owners. I really like working with married Christian business owners who have kids at home, and that's, that's just the avatar that seems to come to me. Now, if they don't check all those boxes, like they're not married or they're not Christian, I'm like, well, it's just situational. I'm just saying that's who I tend to attract, and and I tend to attract that because I'm a member of that avatar group. So as I started to distance myself from the coaching space in the real estate realm, I also started to notice there was like all sorts of coaches for all sorts of things. I was like, there's like, do we need tanning coaches and dishwashing coaches? And like, I was like, is that a problem? Like, we need coaching for? So I was like, oh my. So part of differentiation in any market is, yeah, or to segment market segmentation and differentiation is really what I help teach. And I use that as a strategist. So the way that I use that, and just I know it's a long way to get to this ending here, but as a strategist, I take the metaphorical, like, what do you have that's good? And I just basically clear off this giant table and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's look at everything in your life. And this is, you tell me the strategic direction you want to go in, and we're going to basically draw this battle plan. And that's what the strategic one sheets does, is it helps create that personal vision for your life in terms of where you want to go if it wasn't defined by income generation. And then from a business perspective, you might say, okay, from a business perspective, if you own this business, you might say, okay, what's your core purpose? What's the core purpose of the business? And many times people are way too fragmented in that. And we can talk about that in a minute. But the point is, really what I'm looking at is I'm looking at your personal vision, saying, okay, what would your personal life look like from day to day if it wasn't defined by income generation? And now let's reverse engineer a business that's going to get you there. So that's really the premise about how I really want to distance myself from the coaching realm of all the stuff that was going out there, and recognize that I have some pretty amazing gifts that God has given me. And I use the tools of coaching, I use the cool tools of consulting, I use the tools of teaching, but all that combines to be a really, really good strategist.
Nice. I love the answer. And I did ask you kind of a large question. I threw a couple of big lumps in there. So I don't normally go with that, but I appreciate you fielding that,
All good.
that ground ball. So thank you for that. Now, in the book, let me ask you this. In the book, as I'm reading through it, you've got a bunch of different call signs, tenants, sort of keywords, phrases, things like that, that you kind of live by throughout this book. I'm going to list a couple of them. You got a V.I.P.E.R method, you got an RPM method, you got the four core, functions of business. These are important, pieces to this puzzle. Is there one of those you might want to start with, give somebody an idea of, what they're going to pick up in this book and in this
Yeah,
program?
I mean, if you're a business owner or even thinking about ever wanting to get into business, this is really meant for them. And it's really so. Let me back up to 30,000 feet for just a hot second.
Mhm.
When you're approaching business, especially if you're the founder or if you're an entrepreneur, even if it's just a side hustle, and many people have those things because they're looking for other freedoms. It's there's two main components of business. You have the systems component and you have the psychological component, right? So systems and psychology. And those they have an interrelationship, right? There's a symbiotic relationship between the two. And early on, it's really kind of funny now because back when I was studying business, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which was written actually way back in the 80s. I think it actually published originally back in the 70s, which was the E-Myth, and then the E-Myth Revisited, which was published after that. But
Mm.
it was all a book about systems and replicating the system as if you were going to franchise that business model. And it made sense. And there was all these different iterations of systems over the next 30 years, which again was fine. But at some point, then you had the other people on the other side who were, the Jim Rohn fans and the Tony Robbins fans. They were all about psychology,
Mm.
and that's important. But if you watch the metamorphosis going on, you start to see Tony starting to talk more about business, right? You start to see these business guys start to talk more about psychology. And so there has to be a component of both systems and psychology when you're looking at business.
Mm.
So
Okay.
so the framework there, the V.I.P.E.R framework is really more about the systems piece, and then the other side of that is more about the psychology piece. So there's just two different functions there.
I appreciate you pointing that out. Yeah, that makes total sense for how you've laid this out. So I understand it completely. The V.I.P.E.R system, tell me what that is.
So V.I.P.E.R is is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, reporting.
Okay.
And it's a top-down approach to looking at constructing and putting together a business. And the reason why it's so important for top-down is because many people will approach problems to their business very um uh, I don't know how to say it. Like it's just like oh you have this problem, let me bolt this block over here and fix that problem, right? And it just becomes this a very situational band-aid approach to doing business. And that's how you wind up with all these different things that go on and never an enterprise solution for what's going on in the business. It's never a top-down solution. It's always one that's bottom up. It's all very tactical, not strategic. And I'm not suggesting that tactical doesn't have its place, but you got to have good strategies that align with those tactics. And this is where I see a lot of people spend a lot of time is if I can teach you a tactic and you're like, and I'm saying, no, you got to do this thing like, hey, Rory, you really want to get more customers? All you got to do is just pick up the phone and, call 500 people every single day. And you're like, dude, I'm not doing that. Like, that would be so emotionally disruptive for me. That's not who I am. And that's like, I'm not we talked about it before. Like, I'm not a hard, like, punch you in the mouth sort of sales guy, right?
Right.
Like punching birthday cake into someone's mouth. You're like, don't you love it? Like, am I supposed to? I don't know that I'm enjoying this.
Right.
But that approach, that top-down approach, is what the V.I.P.E.R methodology does. So it's the vision, infrastructure, process, execution, reporting. So the vision piece is really where it all starts. And vision has two components. It's got the personal vision and then business vision. So the personal vision, of course, is what I mentioned earlier, which is everything exists to serve the personal vision. Like the business exists to serve the personal vision because the danger in creating a business vision without any consideration to a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business.
Hmm.
And I'm just telling, like, everybody knows if they've ever been in a situation like that where you've created a business vision without thinking of a personal vision, you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And you're like, yeah, now I got a job. I'm working for a tyrant.
Right.
I can never get fired. I can't quit, right? I can't go on vacation. I can't never not have my phone on me.
Right.
And ask me how I know. I'm 53 years on this planet. There's not a lot of things I've figured out. That one I figured out. And it's awful. It doesn't work. It's fun in the beginning until it's not. And then that's just one of those things where it's fun until it's not, and then you realize, oh my gosh, how do I get out of this?
Right. I mean, that's a big problem being self-employed. You can't call in sick. I mean, you know you're faking it. So I totally got it.
Right, right.
All right, I like that. I like what you're doing there. The idea behind the book with all of these, acronyms and things in it, and again, here it is, right here. The idea behind the book, when you're writing this, I think everybody, when they're writing a book of any kind, they have someone they're thinking of or someone they're speaking to. And I know that in the past you've worked with real estate investors. Um, as you've put this whole course together, okay, and I'm talking, again, this is what that looks like. I mean, it's a lot of material here that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Came in a nice little box. It was very cool. As you're putting that entire thing together, though, today, who is that for?
So metaphorically, right, that was the guy who I was
Mhm.
15 years ago. And I've been in business for myself for a while. I went to college after the Marine Corps and got out, went to Purdue, and they and it was good. It was a good education. But it was kind of funny because I know we joked and you razzed me about being a Purdue alum, and I'm probably the worst Purdue alumni in the history of Purdue alumni. I just don't care. I just don't
Right.
care that much. And people are like, go Purdue, boil her up. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I didn't even realize why people were wearing gold and black at the commencement. I was like, why is everyone wearing this? Is there something I'm not aware of? And it was kind of funny because I got out of the like much larger fraternity of the USMC prior to going to the Marine Corps, prior to going to Purdue.
Right.
So it really wasn't the same impact for me. It was a good school. I went and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, but so I always enjoy the chiding, but unfortunately, I'm a target that doesn't have that much emotion around it. So
Just doesn't care. All right, I
just
got
doesn't
you.
care. I know, and I feel badly. Like I feel like I should care. Like I feel like I should like olives. but I just can't. I don't know why. I've got a great last name for loving olives. Like Dolfini should love olives, and I cannot take any of them. That's just total ripoff. Anyway, so the whole point around the who I wrote this for is that guy who was going out there not giving any attention at all to my personal life and recognizing that I was saying, yeah, well, let me get to making 50 grand a month or 100 grand a month or 500 grand a month, and then I'll worry about that personal thing over there.
Right.
And the problem was it was always a moving goalpost. And even if I did hit certain milestones, I mean, at one point in prior to 2008, I was bringing in $65,000 a month in revenues. And it wasn't, now granted, that's not all profit, but what was the continuation? You get 100 and then you get 100 units, then you're only going to get 200 and then 1,000. Like what's the end goal here? And that was so I wrote it for that guy. And I know that guy so well, and I'm actually so in some ways very disassociated to that from that guy, but in other ways in other ways I'm very very much living with that guy every day, and I feel horrible for that guy because he doesn't know. He doesn't get it. And he's missing out on some of the very best times of his life chasing something that's never going to love him back as much as he loves it.
Hmm. Interesting. I like that. The book itself, I mean, it's informative. It has information, so to speak, so it's educational. But I mean, it also is actionable. You have a chapter in there called Roadmap, for instance, which is like, this is what you do. So, I mean, the book itself seems to be all encompassing of like, if
Mhm.
this is your journey, start here, like
Yeah.
big X on the ground,
Yeah.
and then here's how you go, what you do when you go. Uh, am I just picking this up out of this book, or is that intentional in how you wanted this all to be?
No, it's very intentional. Thanks for noticing that because that was the intent. And in fact, I almost eliminated those chapters from it because I felt the book was off to far too much of a slow start.
Hmm.
And that's why I started to wrap into story and different things. And there's a lot that goes into this because I had to become a good writer. So I studied writing and started reading things that were outside of a normal genre. That I read a lot of business books. I mean, I read about a book every week. Not always, but every week to 10 days. So I read a lot. And anytime I start to pick up on a certain author's literary style, I try to adopt that or at least adapt it into my own writing. And so there's a lot of that. There's some Thoreau in there. There's some other authors in there that I have perused and reading through The Old Man and the Sea a couple times, and I'm like, oh wow, all right, this is like I learned things, and even picking up the tome Moby Dick. How in the world that book ever like got read by anybody? I have no idea. I still haven't read that book, but I perused it. But the book's like 700 pages, and like, can't you put it into a larger font than size 7? But anyway, but those are real masters of the written craft, right? They just understand it and they really know how to draw in a reader, and that's really what I was hoping to do. So I say all that because I had to incorporate those literary devices in there because the book was ungodly slow in the beginning, and I was like, no one's ever going to read this. They're never going to get to the meat and potatoes if they think all I'm going to talk about is vision. But vision's the main circuit breaker. Like you have to go through that component, and usually when people get to that first thing, like then they start answering questions like, oh. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I do want that. Yeah, okay, yeah, so I had to get them there with the breadcrumbs though for them to get to that chapter, and then the rest of it would start to unfold a lot faster.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, the personal involvement, of the reader with the book, make this list, and
Mhm.
so on. You do quote, some books in there. I mean, I really liked this one from The Secret of the Millionaire Mind, that you put in here.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is kind of the next point I wanted to bring up is that when I talk about it being all encompassing, you quote the author of that book, the vast majority of people simply do not have the internal capacity to create and hold on to large amounts of money. and the increased challenges that go with more money and success. That, my
Hmm.
friends, is the primary reason they don't have much money. Now, that's his quote, but it's in your book, and you devote quite a bit of time here to talking about your relationship with money.
Hmm.
So it's not just a roadmap on how to make it. You're talking about, hey, maybe why you don't have it in the first place.
Yeah, T. Harv Eker, he wrote a really, really good book there, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And I'd heard it a number of times, but I was confusing that book with The Millionaire Mind, which was what was it, Stanley? Did he write? I can't remember who wrote that. Stanley. I think it was, yeah, Stanley wrote that. But different book entirely, and much more about just having a healthy mindset with wealth and with money. And um I think that fundamentally this is where it goes back to, again, I appreciate you allowing me to take a second in the beginning to talk about the business systems and the psychology, because this is where the psychological component comes in. So when you're looking at psychology, and this is actually, so I'm writing my next book. This will be my ninth book coming up, called Leader Boss, and the Time Wealthy Leader Boss is about recognizing this psychological component that goes on in a boss who's trying to be a leader and doesn't understand how to be a leader, and they're too nice. So because they're so nice, they get walked all over. And then they're like, well, I'm going to be a tyrant. And then because they're a tyrant, they can't get anybody to do anything except the base minimums because now you're leading out of fear. And that's just bosses really struggle to be leaders. But recognizing that in the psychological component of a business, you have the individual psychology and you have the organizational psychology, right? So there's the personal and the business. So that individual psychology, if you don't have a good relationship with money, how you are in your life is going to translate to how you are in your business. Your business is just an extension of you. And it's amazing. There's been folks who I knew that were bringing in their business like 100 grand a month, and they were spending it. And I'm looking at their lifestyle going, like, how are you spending that kind of money? And they're not,
Right.
I mean, they had nice things, but I'm like, man, that's not what I think of when I'm thinking about, I mean, that's what they were spending. And I was like, good golly, like what in the world are you spending your money on? But that was the thing, is because, and of course, the business is just this giant cow getting, drained every month of all their cash. And that's why I'm saying, like, if until you work on that personal psychology with your personal relationship with money, how you are in your business is going to translate, or how you are individually is going to translate to how you are in your business. So I really make that component around working around that individual psychology of your personal approach to money. Otherwise, it's not going to leave your business in a good spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that doesn't get enough attention, I think,
Hmm.
especially by guys who are trying to start their own businesses. We're all just thinking dollars and cents. We
Yep.
all can reverse engineer. Okay, I need to have this amount of money. I need to have X number of sales. I got to make X number of calls.
Right. Right.
People can do that math, I think, but until you fix your relationship with it all, if you make 10 grand, you're going to spend 10 grand and be broke. If you make 20, you're going to spend 20, you're going to be broke. You
Yeah.
got to kind of figure it out. So I applaud you for including that section in there. I found it,
Thanks.
intriguing. I'm curious, as the four functions of the business: lead generation, sales, operations, accounting, right? And then, of course, you've got these supplements, that sort of match up with that.
Hmm.
You've got, I think most guys who are listening to this now, they have an idea of what all those terms mean.
Hmm.
Okay. Where do you find that the people, especially the people that you coach, that you come in contact with, where do you find that most of us are getting hung up? Is there one of those spots where we seem to have a harder time getting through it than maybe the other three?
Um, I think it depends on the stage of um of a of where they're at in business. So usually, so let's say that we decide to go into a business today. The vast majority of folks, they're usually very task oriented. Like they're doing the thing that they know how to do, right? They create a job for themselves, which again is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but true entrepreneurship is really where, hey, if you want to go do the thing yourself, or you want to hire to go people to do the thing because you see a void in the marketplace, either way is fine for me. I know a lot of people start a side hustle and they want to expand that side hustle. They want to scale. And I'm seeing, and I don't know if I'm the only one seeing this, but because of my interests in business and small business entrepreneurship and 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 the absolute massive humanity out there being sold the same story over and over again, like you want to scale, you want to grow your business, right? Like it's every other ad that I'm
Right.
getting, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I kind of want to see like memes of the guy from, the guy holding his girlfriend who was, getting caught at the Coldplay concert. Like I'd rather see memes around that again, like because good God, this is awful, but
Right.
it's but the thing is that it depends. So where a lot of people struggle, especially if they're trying to grow, usually this where they're struggling is at the multitude of it. Lead generation, sales, operations, accounting. So generally, this is how it happens, right? You've got lead generation, which is the marketing, letting people know what you're doing out there. And then they'll start out doing a bunch of marketing, right? Going out, kissing babies, running for mayor. They're getting out there, right? They're
Right.
maybe putting some ads out there, whatever it is. Then they got the sales. And they're selling the best way they know how to sell. Some of them are really good at selling, some of them are not so great at selling, but if you get enough leads, you can still do okay, even if you're not great at selling. And then you've got the fulfillment piece, right? So the fulfillment, you're the one putting on the roof, you're the one fixing the car, you're the one doing whatever the cleaning, whatever the thing is, right? Building the website, you're doing the tax accounting, whatever. And then you have the accounting piece. The accounting piece for most business owners, I'm just going to take that off the table because most people ignore it. And generally, what goes something like this. They'll go, well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay.
Hmm. Okay. I love your
So,
answer. Right. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm not asking anyone to self-indict. I would never ask that, right? Invoke the Fifth Amendment. But here's the thing is that I have a degree in accounting. I have said those words. I'm just saying I am the least qualified person to do my own accounting because I'm not going to do it, right? So here's the problem then. So now you've got these three functions that are remaining: lead gen, sales, and operations, and then you cash checks once in a while, and that's pretty much the accounting function.
Right.
So here's the problem is that when you're busy, you don't have time for lead gen, right? So you do all the work until you run out of leads, and then you run over and start doing some lead gen until you start getting some more business, and you sell a bunch, and then you go out and do more work, and then you're on this endless treadmill, right? So the average business owner is living the same series of Wednesdays over and over and over because it's never going to be any different.
Right.
And that's where they tend to struggle is they don't systematize it. They don't ever see themselves or extracting themselves from that business equation. So when you're looking at that, where they tend to struggle is at their what tends to happen is the strength of the founder almost always becomes the weakness of the business. So if they are really good at lead gen, they generally don't want to give up the lead gen, even though they've got all these other functions to do. So that's the problem where or they're really good at sales, or they're really good at whatever the thing is, the
Mm.
deliverable, but they don't ever want to give it up. So in my business, unfortunately, or I say fortunately, my strength was in accounting and my weakness was in accounting because I didn't want to give it up. So I say that it depends a little bit on where they're at in business, but generally, if they're trying to grow, almost always it's they're not doing enough of the lead generation because 60 to 70% of your activity needs to be around lead generation. And that doesn't leave a whole lot of time left for sales, fulfillment, and accounting.
Yeah. That was my guess. Honestly, I laughed about the accounting because I think we're all bad at that. I put an asterisk on that, like, okay, this doesn't count.
I'm just going to remove that one.
Yeah, but the lead gen, my background's in real estate as well, and so I mean, I definitely am hearing what you're saying, but that has seemed to be, my realtors always dealt with that all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
That worked under me. It was you get the business, you get clients, you start showing houses, you start listing, everything else, and then you're so focused on the business you have and getting it to
Yeah.
the closing table and getting paid that you forget to keep looking for business.
Yeah.
And so then you have 4 or 5 closings, and you look around, you go, oh, I'm out of business now.
There's nothing in my pipeline. Yeah.
Nothing in my pipeline. I
Hmm.
have nowhere to go. And so lead gen was my guess, on that. But and
Hmm.
I appreciate the rest of it. It seems like, so many of us are in operations or sales. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of where we come from.
Yeah.
Either you're in operations and you want to do this on your own, so you figure, well, I'll figure out how to do sales, right? Or you're in sales and you go, it doesn't really matter what I'm selling. I just have to pick something to sell. So, I don't know
Yeah.
if you find that and, how these books can kind of help patch up the weaknesses of the folks who are coming from those middle ones, the folks who are coming from sales, they're coming from operations, but man, not only do they have to learn the other one, they also got to learn the lead gen. They got to learn the accounting. How can your package help them put that together and maybe patch those wounds?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let's go through the remaining piece of the Viper methodology helps answer that question.
Great.
Because the Viper framework, again, it starts with personal vision and business vision. The I in Viper is infrastructure. And I is all the boring stuff that no one ever really wants to think about, but it's so critical. And it's the things like desks, chairs, software, laptops, tablets, computer systems, phone systems, things like that. And when you stop and and think that, what is um what the business is going to run on, that that makes it a lot easier for the P, which is processes, to exist. If you don't have enough infrastructure, you have no choice but to beef it up with process. So I'll explain.
Hmm.
Let's say that
Okay.
you have a piece of software that aggregates all the data, right? And it spits out some KPIs for you on a flash report. If you don't have that as a piece of infrastructure, well, guess what? Now you're going to hire a person or two to aggregate that data and then come up with the same thing. So you have to beef it up with process, right? Think of the back in the old days where you had a toll booth. You remember like the old days of toll booths, like you and I would remember
Yeah,
back when we were kids,
sure.
right? There was a person,
Person in there.
right? There was a person in there, right?
Right.
That took the toll, hit the button, and and told you have a nice day. Then it got to, throwing the coins in a basket, right?
Right.
And then now you don't even you might take your foot off to slow down from 90 to 88 so the thing can catch your, whatever, but it's
Right.
that's if you're on the toll road and, going across, Indiana. Was that
Right.
90 94? Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
iPass, right?
yeah. So that's we refer to that as the qualifying lane of the Brickyard, here
Right.
in Indiana. Yeah.
Right on. Yep.
Everybody's trying to qualify. But all I'm saying is like that you have to recognize that if you didn't have the infrastructure, like if you didn't have that, then you would have to go back to the manual way where a guy would go back and even prior to the guy hitting a button, a guy actually had to go out and hold the thing up, hold the toll booth up. So these are the sorts of things that you have to think about in terms of infrastructure. And that's why when you're looking at infrastructure and process as the next two components, the process is just how you do stuff from day to day. And process has two components. I'm not going to talk about the second component too much, but the two components are the tactical process and strategic process. Tactical process is what you do every single day, right? It's how you answer the phone. It's how you prepare bank deposits. It's your opening procedures, your closing procedures, right? It's just the boring stuff that Michael Gerber talked about in the E-Myth Revisited about documenting all the workflows that need to get done in any given thing, right? The strategic planning part of process is like so you've got this system, the infrastructure and tactical process. That's the boat. That's the battleship. Strategic planning is cool. We're going to take this thing out of the harbor and go make some trouble. That's what strategic planning does. And you can't do that. Otherwise, if you don't come up with strategic plan, what'll happen is you just spend all of your weeks whacking the closest alligator to the boat. And you never go in any strategic direction. You're just kind of letting the winds of the economy blow you around and just hopefully you don't sink at some point.
Right.
So me, I like to be far more strategic. So to answer the original question is what does a guy do around, these four core functions is you start to address infrastructure around lead generation. What are you going to need, right? Maybe you need a CRM. Maybe you need Salesforce or Go High Level, which I endorse none of them. I'm just saying like I will work with whatever, but
Sure.
whatever's the best fit. But Go High Level or some sort of CRM or Pipedrive or anything along those lines. So now you have a mechanism to capture these people that do come in, and now they're in your atmosphere. And this is what I refer to as infinite marketing, where once someone is in your atmosphere, the only time you stop reaching back out to them is if they prove to you or they demonstrate to you that they are no longer your avatar or they have died. And assuming most people don't like to work with dead people, number one is C number one, right? Is if
Right.
once they demonstrate to you that they're not your avatar, and that could be a misalignment of core values. That could be for any number of reasons, right? Maybe you like working with a certain avatar that tends to be married, and this is a person who's single. I don't know. I'm just making things up, right? Or you like working with people with children or not. Whatever. Don't violate fair housing laws and all this other stuff. But what I'm saying is,
Sure.
if they don't demonstrate that being your avatar in any way, and it could be a misalignment of core values, then you just say, you know what, you're just not the best fit, and that's okay. But you always have a mechanism to make sure that you're reaching out to these people. And that's part of infrastructure and process. And that doesn't need to be you, right? That needs to be somebody, but it needs to be someone where you have the infrastructure in place, and then you have someone, either you or someone else, working that process, around again lead generation or sales or whatever the function is that you need help with.
It's a great answer, though. I mean, infrastructure around the weakness. I mean, how would you repair any structure that was, falling apart? If your lead generation is, a mess, well, then you got to build it up, literally.
That's
Infrastructure. I
exactly
love
right.
that. That's a great answer. Really is.
Yeah.
All right. I love this. And I could sit here and talk to you about all these different pieces of the book for forever. So
Thank
let
you.
me kind of, pull this together a little bit and bring us towards our close for the guys who are listening to this today. We have a lot of guys on this program, especially who are interested in side hustles. They're interested in maybe starting their own businesses. They're going nowhere in the jobs they have. I mean, it's you name it. These guys are dealing with it. These guys are, they're tough. They care. They're trying really hard to take care of their families. That type of thing. These books seem like a great place to get started for these guys on these types of things. What's a piece of advice that you have for guys who are trying to kind of find their way, and maybe they don't know what kind of business to start? Can these books maybe help with that? Anything you have to say on that, given your knowledge, your expertise, and what you've written here?
So right now I'm in a PhD program for organizational psychology, and for no reason at all. It's like I don't need the PhD. I don't need people to call me doctor, except my children. They will call me doctor. But just
I
kidding.
love it. That's all right. Go ahead.
Only my children will call me that. But
Right on.
no, I'm literally like three classes into like this million-mile journey. So I've got a ways to go. But I came across this idea, which is known as Ashby's Law of Requisite Variety. And what requisite variety means is that for any given problem, the system sent to solve that problem has to be more complex than the problem itself.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when I hear people and I give them ideas around creating a personal vision for most is usually the most difficult thing. And I think part of that reason is they're like, well, I don't know. Especially for guys who are already crushing it, those are the worst. And I don't say worst meaning I don't like working with them. Those they really, really are struggling because they might be knocking down $1 million a month. They've bought all their toys. They're on their third wife, and they're just not happy. And that requisite variety, what that allows people to do is when you take in additional knowledge and you take on additional learning, that adds to what's called requisite variety. It adds to the complexity of what you know. So for me, the silver bullet is education and start looking out and start building your base of knowledge in all sorts of ways. I'm not a big fan of AI, right? But I am starting to learn about AI. I'm not a big fan about other things that are going on, but I'm learning about them. And I'm learning about them from people who don't necessarily align with my core values, but to set aside my ego so I can learn it. And again, because I'm a teacher at heart, I want to be able to teach. I want to be able to I want to be able to teach it in a way that aligns with my core values. If something's just fundamentally unethical, I won't do it. It doesn't matter who it is, right? But if they're teaching it in a way, I'm like, ugh, all right, let me hold my nose while I take this medicine. But there's some stuff that's really, really good out there. It's just the way that they're, packing it, punching it into your mouth is just not my frame. But that's what I would suggest is get out there and learn about learning. One of the things, and I'm sorry I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but
It's okay. Go
here's
ahead. Go
this
ahead.
is so important. I hear this all the time with like, oh man, I can't read, I can't blah blah blah. Let me tell you something. I graduated dead almost dead last in my high school class, almost dead last. And the only reason I graduated is because I figured out that I only needed to graduate. I only needed to pass, I think it was gym, English, and a certain math class or social studies. I don't remember what it was. I had to pass those three. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. You mean I don't have to have a cumulative passing grade to get out of this place? They're like, no. I'm like, sold. Right. So I figured, so I poured everything, all of my assets into attention into those three classes and just barely showed up for the rest. And so that's so I'm just telling you, and the reason why, like, I really struggle to learn, and I'm telling you this like right now because for those of you, then take a speed reading class. There's a class out there. I absolutely do endorse this. I get nothing for endorsing it. Jim Quick does not know me, but it's a guy named Jim Quick, Kwik. He's got like the speed reading course. It's the best couple $100 you will ever spend in learning how to speed read.
Hmm.
And most problems is, and this is why you need to know this. I know I'm hitting something at the very late, the 11th hour here, but the problem is that people read like you've never upgraded your reading from when you learned it back when you were like 7 years old.
Right.
So you're still reading one word at a time. And your brain goes way too fast for how ability you can for how fast you can read. So you just need to learn how to do this. And I'm telling you, I went from an abysmal, embarrassing 120 words a minute that I was reading to over 600. And my retention
Wow.
is like it's not skimming. It's not skimming. It's a very specific skill. And that's how I'm able to take in so much content now as I'm going through this PhD programs. So I'm just telling you guys that will give you the tool to then go and this is on video, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So this is just one of my bookcases. And yeah, there it's all color coordinated. And um I've got a dozen of these bookcases just like that. And that's the difference. So take some time to start educating yourself. And then, yeah, if you use this book, that's fine. But this isn't the only book you're going to need. You're going to need lots of others. Learn how to learn. Learn how to learn about all sorts of different topics. Pick up books on Seneca and, Marcus Aurelius and all the different things. And
Hmm.
if you want to be a better writer, read about the greats. So those are all different things. I mean, but for me, education is the silver bullet.
Nice. Love that answer. I mean, really and truly, and especially the tour around the studio. That's very impressive. I love what you've set up over there. I mean, that's pretty good, brother. All right, man. Now I know that you're not just here to sell your program. You're also here, because you want to do something for these guys. You told me before the program you're putting together a deal that's for our listeners, right? So that they can get this a little bit easier. Tell me about what's going on with that. A special link.
Yeah, if you go to strategicboardroom.com/power of man, I have an offer just for your listeners, and it includes the Time Wealthy Advantage book, the other books that you had mentioned, and I'll also throw in a strategy session for them. So
Nice.
the length of the strategy session may differ a little bit depending on when they come, but right now I can offer 45 minutes. But as I get busier, unfortunately, that has to wax and wane a little bit. But right now I can offer them 45 minutes, which gives me, and they can talk about really whatever they want. If they got stuff at home, again, I'm not a marriage counselor or anything like that. All I can offer is the tools that I have in my toolbox, and they can do what they want with them. But if it's business stuff, we can talk about that. Of course, everybody needs to get their own tax attorney and law and all legal stuff. I don't offer that sort of advice, but I'm a strategist, and that's why I need my tacticians, my CPAs, my attorneys, my marriage counselor sometimes, right? I need those people to do their job well, but that's what I do as a strategist. So would love to have conversation with them. And if you want to buy the black box bundle, that will be available at that link, strategicboardroom.com/power of man.
It's fantastic. All right. We're definitely going to put that in the show notes for everybody. And you're putting that together. You're going to send that to me after the show. So
Yep.
we'll make sure it's in the show notes for everyone. Is that the best way to contact you if they do want to reach you is through that link through that website?
Yeah, they'll be just go to the website. There's plenty of other ways to figure it out. I mean, if they can't,
Got it.
I'm
Website's
not.
the key. You
Yeah,
got it.
so
Website is the
website's the
key.
key.
All right, brother. I love it.
Thank you,
Okay,
buddy.
I'll tell you what. The way I usually end these shows, and I'm going to go ahead and do it this way anyway. We're a little over, but you know what? You've delivered some fantastic information for everybody. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that you want to double down on that we talked about? Is there anything you just have maybe a leave behind for these guys? Parting thought. I'm going to give you the last minute. Go ahead and close out. However you would like with anything that you think is pertinent.
I will tell you this one thing that if things aren't right at home, things aren't right anywhere. And I know people talk about health and everything else, but if you're a married individual and things are struggling, you're struggling in your business, you're struggling at home, um, a lot of times, and this is coming from me and having experienced this, is that I doubled down at work because I didn't want to deal with what was going on at home. And I'm just telling you that that was the wrong approach. And I see many people doing that. And I get it. I'm not here to indict, I'm not here to judge, but I get it. But if things aren't right at home, things aren't right anywhere. So I really want to encourage you to reach out to whoever you can. Don't take advice from single people. Don't take advice from anybody that except that's got a successful marriage, and work on that first because that is foundational for every other thing.
Well, that's fantastic advice just in general, brother. I appreciate you leaving that. You really do kind of cover the whole gamut with these guys. So I appreciate everything you brought today. Folks, Marine vet and life and business strategist Mark Dolfini. Mark, thanks for joining us, for sending me all this awesome material, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, and for putting out this special offer to our guests. I know everybody out there appreciates it. And thanks for your time, brother. Appreciate you being here.
Truly my pleasure, and stay warm. Stay under a
Yeah.
blanket.
All right. You too, man. All right, folks. This has been another incredible episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason that we bring such powerful men on here with such powerful messages is because we are united in hoping that you find your power so that you can become a better protector, better provider, a better leader tomorrow than you are today, so that you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we want that for you is because you matter. It's because you have value. And at the end of the day, you're worth it. You just have to believe it. Until next time.